Hey everybody, this is Patrick Lamb. I'm really super excited. I'm also a little nervous because I haven't done this since COVID, so I'm kind of learning. I'm hoping all the technical stuff goes great. You know how that goes can go, but I'm very honored to have an incredible guest and to have the opportunity to share uh, some thoughts and interviews with some amazing people. So. Uh, the introduction I have for you is there's bass players, there's great bass players, and then there's Gerald Veasley. He's a kid from was a kid from West Philadelphia who got a bass for Christmas at 12 and turned it into a passport. I mean, he's toured the world with Joe Zawinul, a Weather Report. He's stood beside Grover Washington Jr. He's shared stages with Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. He's a rare master of the six-string bass, voted best electric bassist by Jazz Is, and the man Charles Mingus Music chose when he wanted a new electric voice. So, but Gerald is much more. He's something more than just a virtuoso. He's a builder, community builder, founder of Bass Bootcamp that shaped over 700 players worldwide. He's a president of Jazz Philadelphia, curator at the Mann Center. Is a guardian of the music scene, you might say, a mentor to a generation. And tonight we're not just talking to a bassist, we're talking to one of the most important voices in American music. You may not realize that you needed to hear. But anyway, without further ado, welcome, Mr. Gerald Veasley. Thanks for jumping on this with me and spending time out of your busy day. I'm grateful to you. How are you? Oh, so here we go. See, there we go. Hold on a second. I think I have you muted. Hold on a second here.
Oh, there you go. Okay, we're
Sorry about
unmuted
that.
now.
Okay, see that's the only
No,
the
no,
only little
good
tech
stuff.
tech thing I've had so far. I have things are going great.
That's that's minor. Let me tell you something. That introduction was really humbling, and it was inspiring to think, the journey that I've had, and thinking about your journey and how here we are together, just trying to make a difference with the music and to move people with our music. So the journey continues. So thank you for having me on your podcast. It really means a lot to me.
You bet. Like, I know you as one of those people when I think, and I can relate to a little bit when you're in the work, you don't take a minute to step back and think about all the things that you've accomplished, and you've accomplished so much, and there's so many things to talk about. I could talk to you for about 4 hours, so you're just gonna have to cut me off when when you have to go to your. I know you said you have something like in an hour, so I'm gonna try to cram this all into an hour. I like to jump into the deep things. You've been around a lot of genius: Zawinul, Grover, Mingus, McCoy, Tyner, Miles, Dizzy. What did you learn from being close to greatness about what actually matters in life and what doesn't in music? I mean, you can take that wherever you want to go. I mean, what did these greats teach you about life?
Wow, that's a great question. And I have to clarify something. I performed the music of Mingus, but I was never mentored or never even met Mingus. But like you said, being trying to be a guardian of the music, that's why I lift up people like Mingus and perform the music of Nina Simone and others. But in terms of things I learned from those masters, I would say to be brave is the first thing. I worked with Zawinul for almost 8 years, and I never saw him shaken or afraid about any situation, whether it was financial, musical, logistics. He always had this fearlessness of that, like things are going to work out. That if you do the work, if you tend to your character, um, and if you believe that things will work out. And I just saw that, and it really helped me a lot because, as you know, often in this business, there can be fear lurking in the background. It's not an
Always
easy.
for a lot. I think for most people are like most musicians are hand to mouth. I know I was coming up. really early. I mean, I worked every job known to mankind. I worked, I picked strawberries, parked cars, made pizza, cleaned roofs, drove trucks. So I think a lot of people, probably the greater majority, have that
Mhm.
survival thing, and I know what that feels like to have that
Yeah.
in the background. But anyway, I digress. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no. That's a great comment about, how hard sometimes the path is and the things you have to do to get where you want to be. And I think it's good for your audience to hear that, to know that a lot of the people that they admire, Patrick included, they had to make a way for themselves and have sacrifices and sometimes do without and sometimes having to commit your life to the music is a serious matter. And then alongside of that, what we try to pass on to musicians is that you don't have to be a starving artist, right? There are other ways that your talent, your work, your songs, your intellectual property, all those things that you're offering to the world, it has value, and it's up to you to hold on to that value and build on it.
Amen. And you can't. I was just talking with my wife about this. You can't. You like you want to give. Like I want to help and give and do good, and I know you do. But you can't help anybody if you haven't got any money, and if you have any resources. So I think people demonize the idea of like doing good in business. Psychologically, and that's not healthy. I don't think, just from my perspective, because if you want to help your fellow man and your brothers and sisters, you can't do it if you can't pour from an empty cup. I guess that's what I would say. What do you think about
I
that?
say I think it's a timeless principle, that what the other analogy they say is, if you're on an airplane, they always encourage you, in case of loss of oxygen, put your oxygen mask on first. I think that's a metaphor
Right.
we've been using.
I like that. Yes, exactly. Put your oxygen
Yeah,
mask on.
yeah.
Or you can't help nobody. Right.
Hmm.
You
Yep.
know.
But I think alongside of that, I served on our local Grammy chapter here in Philadelphia. And when I served on it, I was one of the founding members of the very first chapter we had in Philadelphia. And the person who recruited me to be on that board, I didn't have, platinum gold records. I wasn't rich. I wasn't, a pop star. But I decided, I said, if I have to wait to become a millionaire to make a difference, that time may never come. So, I try to find a way to make a difference no matter what my personal situation is. But you're right. You also have to tend to home, whatever your situation is, make sure that, um, that you're a healthy person holistically, financially healthy, physically healthy, mentally, emotionally, socially healthy. And so and I know that means a lot to you too. As musicians, sometimes we can, because the music is so important and so demanding, sometimes we can let some of those other things go, and our financial health falls by the wayside, or our social health, or our mental health, which is even worse. And so it's good to have conversations like this. It's good to have fellowship like this to remind each other how important we are, not just on stage, but off stage as well.
Yeah, and you want to know that other people are thinking about some of the same things because it's easy to feel like you're. I'm just speaking for me. Like you can feel like you're in a bubble. You're like, do other people think? Are they thinking about these same things? And that's the beauty of fellowship and encouragement, is by having these conversations. Which more people, the more you have, the this is the real community thing. I
Yeah,
think, but
for sure.
but in so many of the industry pushes musicians towards fame, charts, streams, hustle, flow. What should what do you think young musicians should actually be focusing on instead? The things that nobody tells them, that turn out to be everything. Because like you were saying, nobody comes and asks you for your degree. nobody said, and same for me. After I toured with touring with Gino or Bobby Caldwell, all these people, nobody said, "Hey, Patrick, could I please see your Berkeley degree first?" You know what I mean? It's not. So what? It's about who you are. It's because that song, that gospel song, because of who you are. That's what
Hmm.
people gel with. I think, for better or for worse. Hey, I'm not perfect. Uh, was having this conversation about, we all have different sides of our personality. My wife was pointing out that because you have, a decisive, strong part of your personality and a kind one, that doesn't mean you're Jekyll and the Hyde. That means she was saying no. That people kind of put this thing like if you have two different sides, that means that you're like um, there's something wrong with that. And my wife was like, no, that's just one good comprehensive personality. And depending on how people show up is how you show up. Does that make any sense? Because
It makes
people get what you know where I'm going with that. It's
well. There's so much in valuable in what you're talking about. Number one, the idea of whether or not your personality is fixed, and there are a lot of experts to say, your personality that you develop, it's a mechanism to get you through, to get you into adulthood. But you don't have to be just that one way. It's like you can adopt or adapt whatever you need in the situation, right? So sometimes you have to be uh, a relaxed person. Sometimes you have to be aggressive. Sometimes you have to be in a really collaborative way and think about the team, which is a lot of the times. And sometimes you have to lead, right? If
mm-hmm.
if if this house is on fire, we can't have a meeting about it, right? Somebody has to say, "Let's here's the door, let's go." So the point I'm trying to make is that I think there's a lot of wisdom in what your wife said, which is to say, the whole person has different facets of who you, the way that you have to show up in the world, and what facet you need at a particular time is based on the situation. So, but I think the other important thing is to know that human beings are capable of change
Mm-hmm.
and they're capable
Mm-hmm.
of growth, right?
I can tell you that for
Um,
sure because I,
yeah.
I say this with a little humor, but I had to take pretty much everything my family taught me and put it in a pile and burn it and start over. That's the way I look at it. I said, take your test, make your testimony with it. But it's good because I ended up here, in a better place. But I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's all ways of process of editing, learning. Hopefully, if you're growing and listening, God gave us two ears and one mouth, and you're learning and growing. So, which brings me to my next question. There's a difference between being a good musician and being a good man or woman. What does it take to be both, and why does the music world sometimes celebrate one without the other?
Oof, that's a tough question because
You
I,
thought I
I,
was
I
going to
think I
ask you
go back.
about Berkeley chords or something today.
Well,
Hey, that
I
Zawinul record. What was that thing? I can get to that too later, but you don't have all day, I know. So,
well, I can best answer that the way Victor Wooten's mom, what she told the Wooten brothers. And he talks about this often. Victor, of course, is one of the most inspirational musicians of our in our planet today. But
interplanetary man.
yeah,
Yes, yeah.
his mom told those talented boys, look, the world has plenty of good musicians. We need good people.
Hmm.
The world needs good people. And when you think about your time here in the world and what you can contribute, I think what we do for our work is certainly important. what kind of legacy do musicians leave behind? But as with their music is certainly important, touching people with music. Um, but man, the impact that you can make as a human being and how you treat other people and how you're fair and just and good and thoughtful and generous and all those things, that's really the first job. And think about it. That's what our parents, if we're lucky, that's what they're trying to teach us from the very first time they teach you to say the word thank you or
Hmm.
please, right? They're trying to teach you that you're not in this world by yourself. And therefore, you want to learn those others, those basic skills of being a human being.
I love that convo. You know, 'cause when you strip away the gigs and the records and the applause at the core of it, what is it really about? You know, for me, it's just about doing good, which is not necessarily a musical thing. I mean, I think if I was in whatever I was doing, if I was doing something
Mm.
else, I'd be trying to do something, positive and
Mhm.
impactful and legacy.
Yeah,
So, music is a conduit, a tool for who you are, I guess. Maybe, but anyways,
hmm
yeah. So, what is good music then? Do you think not technically good, but just actually good music? What separates music that matters from music that's just well played?
Well, thank you for all these easy questions. I really do appreciate it. You giving my brain a break. They're like so easy. Good music. Uh, I don't know. The beautiful thing about music is that there's no one individual that has an answer. It is very subjective because it's art. And you could put on a record right now and you say, Gerald, listen to this, and it makes you cry. And I might listen to it and go, I don't get it.
Yeah,
But that does not discount the power of that music to you because what makes good music often is what the listener brings to the music, you know.
gotcha.
Now the other thing though we're not talking about though is the intent of the people that make it. I think
Here we go. Uh-huh.
yeah, I think that's important. So if like you were just saying about your intent is to bring goodness to the world, well, people like you are putting that in the music. That already gives it some kind of value, some intrinsic value in my mind. Just your intent to do that. And then when you add on top of that the skill to actually make it so that your idea can come to life and people can receive it. I think those are two important ingredients, the good intention and good execution.
Beautiful. Now, you've spoken about three mentors who shaped you: Ira Tucker, Grover Washington Jr., and Joe Zawinul. Three completely different men. If you had to distill one core lesson from each, what's one thing that each of them put inside you that's still there every time you walk on stage?
Whew. Well, from my uncle Ira, who was a legendary gospel singer, he sang with the Dixie Hummingbirds for over 70 years. I learned the power of not giving up. When he was in his last few days, I went to visit him in the hospital, and you know what he was talking about? He was in his 80s. He was talking about his next album. He was telling me about a song that he had written, and he was literally dying. And so that the power of that of wanting to continue and contribute and still being vital and creative no matter what your age, and it goes back to what we were saying a minute ago about how people can do that in music. But he had that dedication up until his last days here on earth. And then from Grover Washington, I learned the importance of family because see, you could probably relate to this, right? When you're a sideman, and for those of you audience don't know what the term sideman means, those in your audience, a sideman is the person in the background that plays for the artist. So it means you're in the band, you're a background singer, you're a bass player, you're a drummer, you're in the horn section, whatever your role is. You're not the featured artist, you're the sideman. So one of the sideman's pastimes is to complain and talk about what they would do if they were the leader.
No, I've never seen that happen before.
Right? It's, you know,
And I love this convo because I'm all about role definition, and I think so many musicians are not all, but there's a lot of musicians that are unable to separate those roles. Like I love being a good side man. Man, I can't tell you. Like I don't have to put together anything. I don't have to put together set lists, music, nothing. I
mhm.
show up and I play my parts and get the check and see you later. Thank you. And but there's a time when you're a leader, it's a totally different thing, and
Totally.
completely different thing. And you have to be willing to know what that is, embrace it, do the work, have the respect for everybody. There's so much goes into it, getting people the material and the right charts, and being a nice person. you know. So anyway, I interrupted your flow with that
No,
thing.
I think you filled out what I was trying to say, which is to say you described the distinction between the leader and the sideman. The sideman's responsibility is very narrow. Show up, play the music, don't get drunk.
Yeah, yeah. Don't don't hit on all the women or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
you
you
don't have
know,
to do much.
don't
Show up on
make sure
time.
you show up on for the pickup. You know,
Exactly.
stuff like that.
But the leader has all of these other responsibilities, many of them that you don't even know when you're the side man. They're
Hmm.
dealing with the record company, they're dealing with an agent, they have interviews, they're dealing with all kinds of production and logistics. But when I was a side man in Grover's band for all those years, sometimes we get together and say, "Man, why we should be playing more. Why aren't we touring here or touring there?" And we were touring pretty regularly. And then the
You only had like 200 gigs a year. You're
but
like, we should
then
have 250.
you always want more because you don't realize.
I
So
want
here's the
300.
lesson.
300.
So so here's the lesson. There was one time when Grover had a tour that was planned, um, and he decided, no, I'm not going to do it. We were like, why are you not going to do this tour? It was be perfect. I think it was in the UK, might have been the UK, but it fell on his mother-in-law's birthday, and it was a landmark birthday, and he and his wife and the rest of the family had planned this major celebration for her. So he
Huh.
chose the birthday party over the European tour,
Oh, okay. So how did that go
and
down? Was there some commentary, some side commentary in regards to
of
this
course,
particular?
we were like, "Are you kidding?" And then years later, I asked Grover. I said, "You," because he would always say family first.
Hmm.
And I said, "Grover, you're always talking about family first. Like, why is that so important?" He said, "Well," he said, "music is about stories, right?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Where do you think the best stories come from?"
Hmm.
And he just family meant so much to him because it was almost the wellspring of his music. So when we hear that great music that he created, a lot of times underneath what you're not aware of is how growing up family nurtured him, his relationship with his mom, his closeness with his brothers, you know, his the family that he created with his wife. I mean, he didn't separate music from family. And so, yeah, that was a long way to say, a long explanation to say what I learned from Grover. And I already said what I learned from Zawinul mostly was about fearlessness. There's one other thing I would say about Zawinul, if you're curious about it.
Yes. Everybody, the listeners are, I know. Yeah.
So Zawinul was literally a genius. We use the word genius kind of flippantly these days, and even musical geniuses. We talk about musical geniuses, but he truly was a musical genius. Um, but the beautiful thing about him was that he acknowledged the gifts in other people.
Hmm.
He wasn't just so full of himself that he wasn't appreciative of what gifts other musicians brought. And whatever that thing was that he recognized that was special about you, he would encourage you and to bring it
Yeah.
out, the show. Give me more of that. Give me more of who you are. And so I say that he was a genius, and he was by any measure, but part of his skill was recognizing the genius in these musicians that he would bring into the band, helping them to find their voice and honoring that voice.
Man, hey, so talk to me a little bit about. I want to talk about the topic of competition. So Grover was self-effacing and humble, from what I understand. Um, Joe was kind of more the alpha, right? You said Grover had the spirit of they better bring it when sharing the stage with Earth, Wind, and Fire or Patti LaBelle, right? He's like, they better bring it. So, what did watching that competitive fire teach you? Um, yeah, what does that say to you? What do you glean from that? And do you agree with it? Are you in alignment with it, or do you carry that with you?
I do. You talk about your wife. My wife always talks about this, like, this question of being self-effacing and whether people are competitive. Let's just say from the outset that music, the practice of music, performance of music, is not a sport, right? It's not, who's number one. That to me,
I
that
think
doesn't have any.
that depends on who you talk to. Yeah,
To me, that
yeah. I mean,
just to
not for
me,
me and not for you. But I totally agree.
it has no.
But
It
if
really
I
has
think
no
I can,
meaning.
I won't mention names, but I think it's totally a sport to certain people. I think it's absolutely just like hockey, or rugby. you know, I mean, I'm just saying.
All right, I agree.
Some
For
people,
some people, it totally is.
but
Um,
but back to Grover
but
and Sam
well, I
they
think,
better bring it. So he was competitive,
yeah,
even though he was kind, right? So because some people, I think you have to be, for me, you have to be like you have to maintain your sensitivity, kindness, and humbleness, but you've also got to be a effing warrior, you know. It's like you have to,
that's
and that has to
yeah.
be all right here in the same body, in order to be a musician, in some
I
ways,
wish
I think.
Grover were. I wish Grover was here to talk about it because I'm only imagining it and basing on what I saw. But I think for him, the way that competitive spirit played out was he had a standard for what he was going to do with when he played, what the band was going to do, and he never let that standard get diminished, no matter what the situation was. He was always going to be Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
So, like, like they always talk about how Michael Jordan in practice, he was trying to just slaughter people because he didn't really make a distinction between practice and a game. So that's Grover. It's not so much that he wanted to diminish other people, but he just kept a standard. And I think that's so the competition. It's almost like a personal competition to always bring it and do your best. And if other people can't handle it, oh well.
Yeah.
That
Well, the only yeah,
yeah.
I've been listening more to the kind of Stoic philosophy, which is to say that the only competition is the only thing that really matters is what you could do right now to better yourself. Just I try more and more as the time goes on to just concentrate on what's good, how I can be better, and that's it. Because most of it is a big distraction. I think a lot of the other stuff, and it
Well,
just gets you off.
stoicism. Yeah, stoicism teaches us a lot that can be helpful to musicians. For example, getting back to being number one and getting awards and accolades. If you don't get those accolades and awards, it can be frustrating if that's what you're um, if that's what moves you. But the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, he left a good message for us, which is that you focus on the things that are in your control.
That's
That's
it.
pretty basic, but hard to do. And
Very
whether or not
hard,
you
especially now in this TikTok world. It's like, it's like
exactly,
everybody's just like, looking at,
yeah,
and it's very, very difficult to stay
yeah, and you have
focused,
no control over whether you receive an award or not, or
Hmm.
accolades. And so to chase those things, it's human to chase those things, but it's not helpful,
Hmm.
because the Stoics would say those are indifference. Those things that you can't control, they're indifferent. Where the real virtues are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. For them, those were the only virtues. This is not me saying it. This is, what people like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca said about that. But
I'm
yeah,
just
there's a lot
fascinated
that
by it. I'm fascinated by that stuff. As of late, I've been drawn to it just because of the simplicity in a crazy, crazy world. It's just like, yeah, just do what you can do, better yourself, and yeah, and that's mostly all that matters. A lot of other things are a distraction. Um, so, and then which brings us on to the bigger question, Gerald, which is
they're all
where
big questions.
where they're all really light questions. Where is the music going? Jazz has been declared dead, more times than any other American art form. As president of Jazz of Philadelphia and curator at the Man, you have a front row seat. Is jazz actually in trouble? Are we just looking in the wrong places? For where it's alive. What do you think?
Um, I think as long as we have creators in whatever the next generation is who are trying new things, I think they keep the music alive. And then when we can have intergenerational connections where we can learn from one another, that keeps the music alive. Where as long as we have audiences that want something to enrich their lives and jazz can serve them in that way, it keeps the music alive. But back to Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, he said the universe has changed. So if the universe has changed, that means it's hard. We can't hold on. We try to honor the traditions, but we realize that things change. People don't necessarily play like Louis Armstrong anymore. And at one time, when we heard that, when folks heard that way of playing the trumpet or improvising, it shocked the world. And now it's that's a style from another time. So I
Well, I
guess
mean,
the only thing that
A Train used to be top 40, right? I mean, people forget that.
yeah,
They're like they just can't conceive. Everything is always amalgamation of the culture and how people get together, how they communicate, and that's why trying to recreate music from 1950 is never going to happen because that was a completely unique cultural time and place. You know, and I don't think it matters what you do. It never sounds exactly like that. Like or like my
yeah,
or like Miles Smiles or whatever. Pick your favorite record. Um,
yeah.
so
I have a
it's
complicated relationship with that idea because when I was, let's say, playing in the 70s and 80s, I just love fusion. And when I heard people play standards, it was standard jazz, straight ahead jazz. To me, it sounded out of date and boring and not interesting. And then as I got around other musicians and saw, for example, how Grover loved standards, or another one of my mentors, John Blake, I said, wow, there's material in there that's still meaningful to them. Let me understand a little bit more about, how it can inform my musicianship. So it's almost like the process that I'm in is almost like just discovering the new, but also discovering the new in the old. And this is probably one of the traps of music. And you recognize this too, is that there's always something fascinating about it if you give yourself over to it, which means you're tied to it forever because you never ever finish it. You never
Hmm.
ever, if they master it, there's always other things and other horizons. Even if you go back and listen to Sidney Bechet, you hear something like, wow, that's fresh. Because this is what I believe. I believe that it's all about what you bring to it, your perspective. So when I said the music was boring when I was in my 20s, it was because I was boring. you
Ah,
know,
so
you know,
you're, yeah.
it was me. It
Mm,
was me. And
mm.
so anyway, that's how I feel about it.
Well, you said the most impactful thing Jazz Philadelphia could do is serve the musicians, create a space where they're supported better than anywhere else in the world. Why is that so radical? What's broken about how musicians have been treated, and what does served actually look like?
Ooh. So
You can tell I just threw these questions down. Just pulling my
no, these
pad.
are just so great. And it forces me to
But you're a
think. And
thinker, so
and it forces me to tell
I so
it forces me to think and to tell the truth, both. Um, yeah, so the reason that Jazz Philadelphia decided that that would be our goal to celebrate and support musicians better than anywhere else in the world is because musicians were uncelebrated and unsupported. That that we live in a society where not just music but art, that it's been accepted that artists can be marginalized or their work can be marginalized, that it may have intrinsic value, maybe not, but it doesn't have monetary value. And so a lot of our work is in giving musicians information, finding resources for them, providing encouragement to them, opportunities, but mostly finding ways to support them on and off the bandstand. I think is so important. And one of the key reasons it's so important is because we don't even know how many musicians we lose because they just get discouraged. Like, think
yeah,
about when
yeah.
you were that little boy growing up and you looked around the band, and now all these years later, how many of those went, they stopped playing? And a lot of them were really good or talented or had something to offer.
I think about that
But
a lot because I was just talking with somebody about this. Actually, my good friend Steve Dunn, who's a newscaster in Oregon, he called his son is picking up the saxophone. He's like, "Hey, what's important? About helping my son." I said, "Well, yeah, the number one thing is to not get discouraged, and it because and what goes along with that is making sure you have the right gear initially, you know, because I remember like when I first started playing, my first saxophone my grandmother got from a garage sale for $50. It didn't even play. It had like three. The top played, but all the pads were. But we had it fixed, and then I was lucky enough to have a okay mouthpiece and a reed. But let me tell you, it doesn't take anything to completely get discouraged. That is why it's so important to have somebody who knows what the heck they're doing. Take you aside as a up and comer and say, hey, you should start with this reed and mouthpiece so that you have so that you don't think it's you. You know what I mean. So it's
mm,
true with the bass,
hmm
but if you
the
start off
same.
with the wrong gear, it's already over. It's just you're gonna go, oh, I hate this. I'm terrible. So you need those kind of mentorships and passing it down and professionals, talking with the kids and helping them out, because otherwise they get discouraged. They're like, oh no, I hate saxophone. I'm terrible, because they didn't have the right reed that day. You know what I mean? Truly, you know, you get like a 4.5 for a reed, something, in the wrong mouthpiece, and you just be like, not for me. So, well,
Well, I never thought about it that way, but you're so right. There's so many things that can get a young musician off on the wrong foot, including the instrument itself. And some of those things, let's be honest, are tied to the circumstances. You know, some musicians just don't have, their families don't have the resources. And so yeah, with Jazz Philadelphia, though, we think about the encouragement. We think about teaching musicians to get away from a gig mentality, which
what is
is,
that exactly? If you had to put it in a sentence, what is the gig mentality?
well,
Get
a
check, go
gig.
go 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 get go provide service, get check, hasta la vista. Is that the gig mentality?
It is, but it also means um, it is. It's a day to day existence, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a subsistence living where you're just making enough money. You hope you can string enough gigs that
Mm-hmm.
month to pay the bills,
Mm-hmm.
instead of thinking like a business. What are the various aspects of your business that can support your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a mindset shift from thinking about um, a freelance musician that's just calculating your worth by how many gigs you have versus a business, which means having services that you offer, deciding what your price is.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the other thing. A gig mentality means it's whatever somebody's willing to pay me. That's my. They say, well, what's your product worth? Well,
Well, ten
it's
ten thousand dollars or whatever you'll pay me.
right. It's or 10,000 or 10. The importance of that
25
is,
grand or whatever you'll pay me. You know. You know.
yeah, exactly. Because you know,
you know.
if you or I, if you or I walked out of our houses right now and decided there was a car we wanted, whatever the price of the car was, that would be the price of the car. Now we might negotiate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to go in there and say, "Hey, I got $100 for this car. Let me have it," because the car has what? It has a price, and the car dealership has already decided, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
shrewder than we are. They decided how far they can go down, so they're willing to negotiate. But it all starts with a sense of value, and musicians, with rare exceptions, and there are exceptions to this, but I'm talking about the day to day working jazz musician, right? We don't even know how to establish a price for what we have to offer. And all the rest of the world outside of the arts knows how to do this.
Yeah.
They know how, right? They know how to
Yeah.
establish a price for what they do. So that's what I mean by the gig mentality. Just thinking more like a business. And that's acknowledging that it's not a car company, right? What you're doing is very creative and it's very different. But even if you go to the doctor, they have a price,
Oh
right?
man, I know. I just had a tooth done. It was like I can't even believe how much money I pay all this money for health insurance, and it was like
Yeah,
2 grand or something. I was like, I thought I already paid for this. It's insane.
yeah. Right. If
Yeah.
you go to, I just came in from the supermarket. Man, you better believe everything in there has a price.
Milk
And
and hey, milk and eggs is like $150.
but exactly. No, no, exactly. Yeah, yeah. What do you got? Like one bag for $150?
Yeah, like there's only this. How come it's $200? I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
But do you find that in terms of the gig mentality? Does that make sense? What I'm saying, does it make
yeah,
resonate with you?
yeah, it's a real. It's a. I think I think people are as there. A lot of people are as loyal as their options, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean they're trying to make ends meet. Become a college of the streets, a PhD in how to make ends meet. To quote Quincy Jones.
I love it. I love it. I
you
love
know,
it.
so I think a lot of people, and I can relate because I've been there. I spent a lot of time there initially, coming up. So I could completely, and that's the blessing of going through stuff. Is that later you can, if you have a heart, which not everybody does, but if you,
Mhm.
um, is you can relate and empathize and feel for others. And not all humans possess that. That's also an important thing to learn. I've learned this because I can talk to anybody who cares, but I can't talk to I don't care. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know.
I do.
So
Yeah.
so hey, I've got just a couple more questions. One of which is having to do with unscripted. What's the vision and overview of what you love that series to mean to the community and the world?
Well, it goes back to your earlier question about, what's good music and where is jazz headed. I firmly believe that, and it goes also touches with standards of what is your standard as a musician. I really feel that sometimes we play our audiences, we play down to our audiences when audiences really want to hear your whole heart. You know, we don't have to dumb down what we do. Let Give them your best. So the unscripted jazz series, we start off with the premise that music that musicians often have a lot more in their toolbox than they get a chance to show.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a set in a jazz festival, and you're playing in front of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, whatever it is, you got to have a dynamic show. Lay, let's party, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get riled up, and you hit them bang, 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 bang. And I've been there, and I know how to do that. But there's something about a club that allows you to take a breath if you want and try something out to get out of your own comfort zone and be creative. So the unscripted jazz series says you can venture off from the script. Your set list can include something that you just want to try and show your whole heart, right? Instead of um, being afraid that you won't be accepted. I think one of the biggest impediments to the world of art is fear. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. I think it's fear. It's a very fear based um, practice. And then a lot of people that we really admire, they found a way to break through past that fear. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell this story. This is the 100th year of both of them. And in Philadelphia, where Coltrane lived for some of his seminal period, we're honoring him. I'm doing a lot of work around John Coltrane and bringing folks together. But one of the things I was fascinated by was how after he got fired by Miles the first time, got himself together, came back to play with Miles Davis, and by now he has an album out. And people are saying, don't you want to go out and, play your own music? And he did, but he was afraid of not making that $350 a week from Miles anymore.
Really?
Right. So even one of our greatest musicians that jazz has ever produced had to deal with fear in that way, right? Can
Mm-hmm.
I make it? Can I survive? Can I support my family? Can I take this chance? So fear shows up so many ways in the music business, whether it's at a grand level or for us in a jazz club. So what we're trying to do is counter that by saying, "Hey, come and just show your whole heart as a musician. Just play,
Mm-hmm.
man. Just give them everything. Don't be scared because the audience is not scared, you know, because They want to see you be brave, because if they were a musician, what would they do? They
Hmm.
wouldn't be careful or cautious. They would be brave. So part of your value as a musician, this is what I believe, is that you're doing for that audience member what they can't do for themselves,
Mm.
right?
That's deep.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Just like
Hmm.
When Michael Jordan would go through the air, or LeBron, whoever you admire, when they're doing that thing, we can't do it. So they
Hmm.
do it at the highest level for us. They don't
Hmm.
dummy it down,
Amen. Yeah.
because if we were in that position, we wouldn't want it. We wouldn't want it dummied down.
Hmm.
So unscripted is to say, hey, we can play, hey, everybody get up and dance and let's party and play the safe cover, but you can also, you know, bring, just like you said earlier, Grover, just bring it
Yeah.
and see what happens. That's it. That's the philosophy
That's
behind it.
beautiful. So last one, Gerald, and I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, and I know you have another appointment you have to go to. So when the lights go down, for the last time, and somebody picks up the bass and says your name, what do you want them to feel before they even play the first note?
Ooh, say that again.
I said, so when the lights go down for the last time and someone picks up a bass and says your name, what do you want them to feel before they play the first note? So just when people think of you and they're picking up the bass, and they think about your spirit and legacy, what do you want people to think about when they say Gerald Veasley?
I would say joy, joy, the joy I experience in playing. I would love for them to think about that and feel that. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks so much for spending time with me. Thanks for having me at your series. I didn't even mention they're going to be there this Thursday, right?
Thursday, May 21st. We got to talk about that. May 21st,
We talked about
2026.
everything else. That's right. We have a
Two
gig coming up.
shows,
2 shows.
Patrick Land.
Please come. All 7 of my fans are all coming. So
No, it's going to be
please.
great. And you're going to bring it, because that's what you do. You're
We have
very,
fun.
we have a lot of fun. And I love that you bring a soulfulness and an earthiness to the music. And we were talking about this the other day, how you're not afraid to just play with a pure heart, one note. It doesn't have to be 100 notes, but investing in each note, and letting people feel your heart. That's it to me. So I look forward to it.
Oh man, I'm super excited, and what a beautiful club and just vibe and intimate place it is for those of you who haven't been there, which I hope there isn't anybody. I hope everybody's been there, but if you haven't, make sure to go check out South. What's the address for South?
It's 600 North Broad Street, South, and you can look us up online. You can go to southjazzkitchen.com. Southjazzkitchen.com. People ask, why is it called South? And it's because the
The cooking?
chef, the chef there, and his partner, they
Yeah,
decided on Southern cuisine, and it is
so
it
good.
is it
It's
is really good.
unbelievable. That's worth the
Well,
trip. So,
you're a son of the South, so
oh my gosh.
does it
Oh
meet
my
your roots?
gosh. It's the kind of food like after you leave, like you relive it the next day. You ever do that? You're just like, and you're just like, oh my God, that was so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's South. And and then the shows are what time on Thursday, right?
6:30 and
6:30.
9 o'clock.
6:30 at 9 o'clock. Okay. All right. Well, God bless you and all the listeners, and I appreciate your time, and I'll see you on Thursday, my good friend. So, Gerald
Yeah,
Veasley,
forward to it.
appreciate you, man. All right. God bless. See you later.
God.
Sure is fun. I know that.
This is where the party at.
Patches is patches. 2-week-old collard greens. Kind of extra meat in it.
Do it, honey.
He always wearing them Japanese burger shoes.